Welcome back to the Body Composition Coach podcast, episode 22. Today, I want to talk about a concept that I use with clients. Well, actually, not even just with clients. A concept that I created that I use to explain what is required to get a transformation result of some sort. Now, I think people maybe misinterpret transformation sometimes. They think that transformation needs to be a dramatic, overweight to photo shoot transformation. That's not what transformation needs to be. A transformation can be a journey of some sort. It's you going from A to B, whatever A and whatever B looks like. For that to happen in a physique context, which is what we work within, body fat, muscle mass, for that to happen, concept that we would explain, or a concept that needs to be in place, or three pillars, let's say, or three corners of this concept that need to be in place, is what I would call the transformation triangle. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the transformation triangle. I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to point out which of the corners may be missing from your particular context to help you move forwards. Before I do that, as always, if you're 22 episodes into our podcast now and you haven't left us a 5-star review, you haven't left a comment on any of our podcasts, you haven't subscribed on Spotify, on YouTube, let us know what you think, how we've helped shape your fitness journey, how we've helped shape your body in some way, then please do. We are getting close now to the end of series 1 of the podcast. And when we do, a decision will need to be made on series 2. And I would love to keep bringing you the free advice that's going to help you move forwards, the in-depth detail that social media just cannot give you. I'd love to keep bringing you that, but we rely on you to leave us 5 stars, leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts. And if you do, even if you've left us a comment before, leave us another one. Leave us a comment on every podcast. It would be great to hear your thoughts. But let's get stuck into the transformation triangle. I suppose to start with the transformation triangle, I kind of need to draw you a picture. I need to draw you a triangle. Now, I don't know, this is going to go to an editor and maybe they can draw me a little triangle. And if they don't, then they don't. So please, if you're looking at me now on this podcast, you're thinking he's just drawing a triangle in the air with his finger. Yeah, I did. And the editor didn't put a triangle in. So I apologize. If they did, it looks cool, right? But anyway, the triangle. It has 3 corners, as I would hope. If you're 22 episodes into this podcast and you haven't figured out a triangle has 3 corners yet, then I have no hope in helping you. But I'm going to assume that you do. You're there. So the 3 corners of the triangle. The first one is time. The second one is massive action. And the third one is guidance/direction. Let's call it guidance for now. Now, these are the 3 things that must align to create the perfect triangle. If these 3 things don't align, you are at danger of your transformation triangle or transformation in general collapsing. Now, what do I mean by collapsing? I mean, if one of these elements of the triangle is missing, of the transformation triangle is missing, you can do all of the other 2 elements and you can do them well, but you're still not guaranteed to get the result that you want. And I think that's where people end up really frustrated in their fitness, fat loss, muscle building journey, because they potentially have 2 of the corners, 1 or 2 of the corners absolutely locked in, but the other's missing and the triangle collapses. They don't get the transformation result that they're expecting. That's traumatic when you've been working pretty hard or you've been doing what you think is a transformation or you've been doing what you think is muscle building. I think muscle building is probably the most frustrating of those, right? And I speak to people every day who tell me they're building muscle and I see what they're doing and they're not. And the reality is with muscle building as well, because you have to be so patient. Fat loss, you should be seeing results reasonably quickly. If you're not, you should probably change something. But with muscle building, you should be pretty patient. And I see people all the time who are, this is a tangent, but see people all the time who are going off building muscle. They spend a year building muscle and then they get to the end of the year like, oh, nothing's really changed. And you kind of need to give it a year. You need to give it, 6 months at least, to then find out that you weren't really doing the right things to get the result that you were after. That's painful. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the transformation triangle, because we talked about the 3 corners: time, massive action, and guidance. And often people align 1 or 2 of these things and it doesn't lead to the complete transformation triangle. It doesn't lead to the result that they want. Let me explain a little bit more about each corner. So time can be one of 2 things. Time can be you're giving it long enough, the transformation, you're giving your transformation, however that looks. Insert your goals into this triangle. So you're not giving it long enough, or you're actually giving it too long. Quite often the problem when people don't get the transformation that they want, they haven't been patient enough. They have potentially expected results in 6 weeks that's going to take them 6 months. But also, one of the common problems I see is people give themselves too long. They have no urgency. Nothing strikes me as someone who's not going to get to where they want to be than someone who I ask, how long are you giving yourself to get there? Like, when do you want to be there by? And they say, oh, I don't know, just slow and steady. I tell you now, that is the biggest red flag for me that they're never going to get to the result that they want. You must have some sort of urgency. But on the flip side, and it's very contradictory, I know, you also need to have patience. So you need to know when you want to be there by, but it needs to be realistic and you need to be patient with the process. So that's time. Either you give it long enough, or you give it less time and you have some urgency. The other corner is massive action. Now, you could just say, John, why don't you call this action? And I thought about this. And the reason I don't give it just action, I give it massive action, is because I feel like action is a perspective. You can tell me that you're doing everything you need and you're giving it effort, but you might be giving it 30% effort or 40% effort. Now, the reality is, with this transformation triangle, to be successful, you need to be consistently giving it very close to 100%. You've given it the correct time. You're now going all in on action. And that's why I say massive action. You're giving it everything that you've got to get the result that you want. You can start to piece together some of these things. Okay, well, yeah, I am patient. I give it long enough. Maybe I'm not urgent enough. Or the other, you might be thinking, do you know what? I've got the urgency, but I don't have the patience. And then you might be thinking, do you know what? Yeah, I do sometimes go all in on it and I give it everything, but it doesn't line up with the time that I've given it. You see how we're starting to connect the dots here. And then the third corner, or the third element of the transformation triangle, is guidance. Often you can be giving it massive action. You can be realistic with your time frame, but you're not pedaling in the right direction. You're not driving or steering in the right direction. And you might think you know what to do. I just need to eat a little bit more, eat a little bit less, or eat a little bit more, or I need to, lift some weights or whatever. Listen, I've said this before in a podcast. I go to a very good gym, which you might say is a sort of gym that most people that go there have trained for a very long time. And I walk around that gym and 80% of people, I'm looking at stuff, I'm like, oh, if you just did that a little bit differently, you'd get a hell of a result compared to what you've got. So there's always an element of that you think you've got everything lined up and everything's right, but you don't know what you don't know. And I'm a huge believer in that. Like I've been coaching for 16 years. I've just hired a new coach. Not a coach to work for me. We have coaches that work within the program, but I've hired a coach for me. Are they going to teach me how to lift, right? Are they going to teach me much about nutrition? Probably not. But they're going to have a different perspective. They're going to be able to zoom out and take a look at my roadmap and my journey over the long term. So even me, after 16 years and all the thousands and thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pounds by now that I've spent on education, mentorship, learning, courses, coaches, I've just hired a new coach 16 years in. It just shows you that there's always guidance required, no matter where you are on your journey. So let's take those three elements: time, guidance, massive action. All these three things must align for you to be guaranteed your result at the end of it. So some common combinations that trip people up is that they have massive action and they have a realistic time frame, but they don't have the correct guidance. And when they have the massive action, they're pedaling hard, they're realistic with a time frame, they've been patient enough, they've had urgency with it, but they didn't end up where they wanted. And it's because they missed something. They didn't quite have the correct guidance to get them to where they wanted to be. Another alternative view of this, and one you might not expect to hear, is that somebody has the coach, they have the massive action, so they've got the guidance and the massive action, but they've not been realistic with their time frame. Either patient enough or had enough urgency. I've seen this. We have clients who come into our program, or we have had in the past, who come into our program, they're like, look, I want coaching, I'm ready, I'll pay you the money, I'm in, and they give it everything. They follow the guidance, they're heading in the right direction, but either they don't have the urgency to follow through on the actions that are required, or they're not realistic with the time frame it's taken. And we as coaches will always do our best to try and be realistic with people as to give them an idea, this is how long this is going to take. But you also have to work on that yourself. And the other alternative combination that you might have kind of put together already by this point is that you've been realistic with your time frame, You've had the guidance, but you've not put in the massive action. And this is, again, coaches who are listening to this. We coach some coaches within our program who are probably listening to this and are probably thinking, I know that problem. I've seen that over and over again. The person pays the money. They're realistic with the time. Yeah, okay, cool. I'll be here for 6 months. I'll do the work for 6 months. And then it comes to doing the work. And they don't do the work. They don't have the massive action that's required. So you can start to see when you piece this together how if you don't have one of these things, the triangle collapses. You don't get the transformation result that you want. But let's flip that. Let's look at it on the positive side. If you have all three of those things in place, you have a bulletproof system to get the best result from your transformation, whatever that looks like, whatever from A to B looks like for you. You have the best chance you could imagine of completing that transformation. You're realistic with your time frame. You have urgency, but you're patient enough to know it takes time. You have the guidance you need. You know what direction you're heading in. You know what the end result is. I talked on previous podcasts about the phases that you're going to work through, the fat loss, the maintenance, the muscle building. You know how that all plays a part, and you know where you're going to end up. And then finally, you're ready to give it massive action. You're ready to go all in on it. Give it what's required. Give it some oomph. So listen, if you're listening to this and you're like, do you know what, Jono? I'm ready to give it massive action. I'm realistic. It's going to take me some time, but do you know what? I'm urgent. I want it. I want to make it happen. And you're ready to take the guidance. You're ready to follow the plan, the strategy, the roadmap that we lay out. You probably want to reach out to us because you're the type of person that we want to work with. The person who's going to put the three elements of the transformation triangle together, who's going to follow the guidance, have the urgency, be realistic with the time frame, and give it massive action. If you do, reach out to us on Instagram. You can hit the link in our bio. You can apply to work with us there. Tell us about the transformation triangle. Let us know that you feel like you're ready to implement all three areas of that transformation triangle. And I absolutely guarantee you, I would love to hear from you. So listen, I reminded you at the start. I'll remind you again. If you want series 2 of the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think, share your thoughts on any of the podcasts. It doesn't have to just be this one. Leave us a like, engage with us, follow us on Spotify, on YouTube. Let me know your thoughts. But in the meantime, I'll see you on the next episode, which will be episode 23. Thank you for joining. I'll see you there.